Hey guys, Tyler with Leggari Products, and today I'm going to show you how easy our products are to use by coating this board and making it look like a masterpiece. All I'm going to do is dump colors out, blend it around, throw a little marble spray on there, and it's going to be a beautiful piece of art. First thing you want to do before you guys start your projects is make sure your board's level, make sure your corners are rounded. You never want to coat over a square edge piece of board. The material's not going to want to flow over as good. So what we did is we routed the corners. Now we have a nice rounded edge. That's going to help the material flow over. And a little Leggari tip is I'm going to tape these edges like we do on our stone kits, and that's going to keep my design the same and not flow over that edge and get run marks or drag marks. A cool little tip. So I'll pull that tape when the resin sets up, and we'll keep that design exactly how we want it. So first thing I'm going to do, mix the primer. I have everything I need to mix my primer here. I have my mixing container. I have 10 ounces of water. I'm going to be making about 12 ounces. When you guys are doing primer, typically you need about 0.4 to 0.6 ounces per square foot. So all you would do is take your square foot, times that by 0.4, 0.6, and that's how much primer you need. And I always like to make a little extra because your roller is going to soak up a lot of that primer. So next thing we want to do is de-shed our rollers by simply rolling it on some painter's tape. I like the yellow painter's tape because it is very sticky. Pull some out, and then we're just going to run this on there, and that's going to get any of those loose hairs off. Just really cleans those off. So it's always good to do that before you start your project, and that goes with your epoxy, primer, top coat, everything. Always de-shed. And then I don't need a mixer. I'll just use a paint stick since I'm mixing such small amounts of primer. So yeah, that's it. I'm gonna get my gloves on, and then I'll grab the primer off the shelf here and we'll get started. I'm gonna make about 12 ounces. So I'm gonna fill the 2 mark to the 2 line. That's the part A, 2 to 1. And then I go to the next line. That means 2 to 1. I go to the next number 2. And that's gonna make it 2 to 1. And then I'm gonna have about 10 ounces. So I need about 1 ounce of water to add to that. And then I'm just gonna dump this out in a bead in the middle, roll it out. If you guys are doing counters, larger projects, it's good to use a roller tray, dip and roll it. It gives you a good even coverage. But stuff like this, smaller projects, it's a lot faster to just dump it out in the middle. We'll show you guys that next. All right guys, primer is dry but still tacky. So when you're priming, you want to coat the epoxy over it within 2 hours. You don't want to wait longer than that because the primer is going to set up and become a sealed surface. So if you're going to prime, make sure you're doing the epoxy within that 2 hour window. And I typically like to apply the epoxy in about an hour, hour and a half. That way it has a good tack to it and it's gonna get a really good chemical bond to the epoxy. So I got everything I need to mix here. What we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be spraying Montana marble on the top when I'm done. It's gonna create some really cool fracture veins. And then I'm gonna spread the product out with just a squeegee. It's a really cool technique and looks good. And like I said before, I'm gonna tape off my edges. We'll let it set up a little bit. That way it doesn't move and I can keep the top exactly how I want it. And then since this is a really thin MDF, it's only 1/2 inch, I want to push that tape underneath and seal up the bottom. If you don't do this, it's going to wind up bleeding everywhere. There's not a lot of face here for that tape to touch. So we got some cool colors we're gonna be doing. I'm gonna grab those off the shelf and then we're gonna be using our 3-quart kit of epoxy. There's the colors and I'll pull those out. And then I'm gonna be squirting some of our silver Leggari effects in a few of these colors just for some more added effects. Grab our 3-quart kit of epoxy here and we're gonna pour the part A's in first. While those are draining out, we'll pull out our colors. We're gonna be doing coffee, bright orange, black, and turquoise. So these are our smalls. This is the medium. We'll be doing a little bit more of the turquoise, so I got a larger color pack there. Now the easiest way, since we're mixing so many colors, I'm mixing all the product up in clear, get that mixed good, and then I'm gonna dump out into separate containers the clear resin, and then I'll add my colors. So instead of measuring out product for each color in each one of these, I can mix up the whole amount I'm gonna use, dump in the container similar to our stone kit process, and it just makes it really fast. Now we're gonna add the part B. Now just keep in mind, when we add the hardener, which is the part B, that's gonna start the timer for how much time we have to work with the resin. So we wanna make sure everything's ready to go, laid out, so we can just move quickly. All right guys, so I have my mixed resin here in clear. Now to get the colors, I'm gonna pour out into these containers. I can pour some more of one color, right? If say I want more turquoise like I'm gonna do, I'm gonna fill this up a little more. The rest, maybe not as much. Now a little Leggari tip is to use secondary mixing buckets. So after you've mixed this up, dump it into a new container, and then that's gonna ensure you don't have any soft spots. So I would dump this into a new container, scrape it all out, mix that again for 30 seconds to a minute, and that's gonna ensure your resin's mixed completely. You're not gonna have any soft spots, and it's gonna set up like it should. So when I'm mixing multiple colors, it's always good to start out with the lightest color, work your way to the darkest. All right, now I'm gonna take our silver Leggari effects. I wanna give this a nice little shake before you use it. And then I'm just gonna add a little bit into the black. Just gonna kind of squirt it down in the sides here. All right, guys, so once we have it in the buckets, right, we wanna get this out as fast as we can. So I want this turquoise to go down first. I'm gonna kind of create a long vein right through the middle, maybe some other spots throughout. I'll start on this end and work that way. All right, so now that I got that kind of spread out a little bit wider, now we can start adding our other colors. All right, now we got all the resin laid out. Now I'm just gonna take my squeegee and I'm just gonna start following this pattern, kind of blending these colors in. It's gonna create some really cool effects. All right, now that we got all the spots kind of hitting, I don't see any primer anywhere, we're gonna spritz it with clear isopropyl alcohol, small to medium drops. And then we're gonna throw the Montana marble spray just in random spots to create some fracture veins. I'll actually run a little bit more silver through this, just in the black spots with this Leggari effects. All right guys, now we're gonna spray the Montana marble spray, create some fracture veins out here. It's just gonna add another layer of depth. And what we did is the tape kind of folded over. It didn't start bleeding underneath, it just kind of folded over from the pressure of the epoxy. So I got some trim pieces just kind of sitting there holding it up. Now when you're spraying this, I like to kind of always be moving different directions. If you just spray it really close, it's gonna just do a bunch of splatter. So hold it a little bit away. Move your arm as you're doing it, and it's gonna let it kind of fall like a spider web. All right guys, so last step, we're just gonna mist it real quick with denatured alcohol. That's gonna help this lay out glass smooth. We just don't wanna spray so much where it makes that Montana marble spray get really runny and move a lot. So we're just gonna mist it real quick. All right guys, we did have a blowout. I know I said that we probably wouldn't, but hey, stuff happens. Partly it's my fault and partly the tape's fault for not being sticky enough. But typically we do 2 layers of tape. I only did 1. And again guys, this stuff just happens. So I don't like what happened. You can see it kind of all pulled right here where it ran. A lot of these colors kind of just blended together. So what I'm gonna do is, since I noticed it before the resin set up too much, I'm gonna kind of mess with it again, reshoot the marble spray, and we'll get it back to how it was. That's pretty much it. Now we got rid of all those run marks, those streaks, made it look more uniform like it was in the beginning. And since it's been sitting for about an hour, I can pull everything, pull the tape, and it's not gonna pull and drag anymore because it's already starting to set up. And then the last thing we'll do is just obviously scrape our drips off. That way we don't have all those drips on the bottom, using a paint stick or a putty knife.